application. And there are all kinds of stories like that with Microsoft, where a person was trying to plant a backdoor into the entire system. And the only reasonable, and I had a thought about it a few days ago, the only reasonable thing you can do is to trust the developers. That's the best you can do, because anything else is it's really hard to obfuscate a backdoor and to put it in some tricky, very shrewd way, and try to do it as a sort of a small update to an existing application nobody's going to check. And this is why this whole approach with shops, they promise you security, but I think what they actually promise you is, well, they take control. Same thing with airports and all kinds of checks where they want to photograph and they want to track you, but when you look at the statistics, it doesn't actually, even stop and search in the UK. They say that they only catch, even on a routine search where they just look at suspicious people instead of trying to look at random people, the success rate is something like 10 times better. So you kind of ask, why do they do that? They might think it's a good approach, but in terms of statistics, they give you the sense of trust, they give you the sense of security, but you feel more secure, but you aren't actually practically more secure. And the same thing with the shops here, so people...
I think maybe the answer then in the future might be more accountability from the person who is submitting the code or the application in the first place. Maybe having I don't know how it works, but I've never submitted an app, but I'm assuming that there is some sort of registration. Maybe if the registration, and they could be sure of the source that was releasing the code or the application, then at least you have some accountability if indeed it does transpire there's a backdoor or that it's malicious intent. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Like I said, my views fall on both sort of sides, and I can sort of see the advantages of both. Although having said that, like I say, I don't want to be told I can't have a BitTorrent client, even though I don't want one. One
approach they did find with at some stage, I think Google found a way which quite impressed Mozilla. What they did is they require every person who submits an application to register with a bank account, and the way they do that is to require them to pay, I think, $5 for every person who submits an app. And this actually does a bank transaction with the person, so they surely get the right details of the person. It's not a very high fee to pay, but the reason they have to make the payment is to ensure that the person behind it can be a piece of malware. They do have the person's bank account. Yeah. That's the approach I think they'll take with Firefox.
Providing the bank account details are stolen. But then you can go to the nth degree, can you, I suppose? So,
and that's the best they can do. And that's what I'm trying to say. They don't actually check the code, or they could actually try and check the code, and they can do automated scans and try to check the behavior of things and have like a farm just running the apps and trying to do some testing on them to try and see if they do anything malicious, like reading files they're not supposed to read. But this whole task is a very complicated one. And this is why I just generally distrust them. One more thing. I think I actually want to say a few things with Microsoft. It seems to be going pretty badly because Office 2010 is only being used by 4% of the Office users now.
Right.
That's pretty terrible. And you have to remember the boss of the whole, I think it's called a unit and a division in this case. I think they call it a unit of Office. He basically left the company about a month and a half ago, and that's the main cash cow of, as far as I know, this is where most of the money comes from. They don't actually manage to sell too well, and the same happens with the phones now. They have this, I call it Vista Phone E7. They don't manage to sell many of these, and people who observe the shops that sell them, they can tell you there are no queues, and Microsoft doesn't share numbers, and people who are even shareholders of Microsoft actually make fun of these phones that just aren't impressed, and they kind of worry about the future, which leads me to saying that with Ballmer, he just sold lots of his shares, and people start to ask questions because of the tax, the tax laws. He was lobbying on. So he spent like $500,000 or so trying to lobby to basically give himself the benefits by which he can avoid paying tax when he sells the stocks. And it's kind of a long story and it's kind of speculative, but it kind of seems like the executives at Microsoft trying to get as much money as they can selling the stock. Ray Ozzie was selling his stocks quite recently. I think around July or June or something, he sold lots of his stocks, and the same goes for the COO of Microsoft. That's Kevin Turner, I think his name. They all seem to be selling the stock basically and trying to get it at a high price and not paying much tax on it while they do so. One last thing is Microsoft actually did kill a product. You told me about this yesterday, and today I wrote a post about that. And that's Bing Maps 3D. They used to have some 3D there, and it seems very official. Microsoft actually admits they basically shut down the entire effort. And I did a count of how many things Microsoft has killed since 2008 among the products, and the count I have is 57 things.
Yeah, it's it's another example of where they've tried to compete in a Me Too type attitude with something that's been established, and unfortunately they've crashed and burned again. Unfortunately, in this case, it's the expense of people who the shareholders of Microsoft stock. So it's another. I mean, Microsoft, in my opinion, has always or has recently been trying to play catch up in a lot of products or services, and it just hasn't quite got there. And I don't really want to dwell on Microsoft because I get accused a lot of the time of hating Microsoft and having a campaign against Microsoft, and that's not true. If Microsoft does something that benefits the free and open source software world, if it ever did, or if it did something well, then I'd be the first person to say so. I haven't got any news like that, unfortunately, but when it does, I'll be the first to let people know. Just very quickly, going back to the cash cow comment you made about Office, and this was a question that was puzzling me for many years. I actually run Abbey Word, and my use or my requirements of a word processor are probably nothing more than a spell checker, a bit of underline, bits of italics, a few tabs on the page, and that's basically about it. And I can't believe that I'm unique in my low requirements of a word processor. I mean, all I require is a few for letters and a few short reports at a time. So I can't see and I can't understand why for so many years that people have been buying into the Office suite. I'm not talking here now enterprise who've maybe got contracts with Microsoft or whatever. I'm talking about the home user. I mean, things like Abbey Word, that's cross-platform, and it does absolutely everything you could possibly want it to do, and a lot more, which I'm never going to get round to using. And I think it was only a matter of time, especially with the rise of the internet popularity and people getting online, getting into computing, and computing no longer being seen as geekery, that the word would get out that there's better or there's alternatives to Office where you don't have to dip into your pocket to get them. So, you know, hearing about Office not having the same figures, not having good figures, it's of no surprise to me. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I was just going to say, fear of being different and also the certain expectation of a format to work with something else. People assume that just as you plug different different bulbs onto the same lamp, people expect to only be able to work with a document if they use the exact same tool they did before. So it's kind of inconceivable to a person that, you know, use Abbey Word. You kind of think, well, that's not Office, you know, that's not for an Office, you know, because if it says Office, it must be everything and the only thing you can use in an Office. That's what most people think. And every change is perceived as a inadequacy in a way, even if the computer is not highly. I never use Office suites unless a person sends me something in a very specific format or a presentation. I probably will open it in Presenter, but I personally use Leaks for all my documents, letters, and academic papers and things like that. I even used it yesterday, and I like to explore. They have new features all the time, and they try to exploit the power of LaTeX a bit better, trying to add the latest packages and put it in GUIs, because before I used to actually go to the preamble and put all the things by hand and doing some codes and stuff, and now I just have a nice GUI for it, and I was very satisfied by it. And it produces something that looks a lot better than anything you can get with the real time, what you see is what you get type of editor.